contest one day, and weightlifting's going to be an extreme sport. Mark my words.
If only there was a novice comp that Mother could sponsor.
Monster, mate. Stop saying Mother. They're the enemy.
Oh, Monster Mother. All right.
Just flicked up into my nose.
All right, just put this somewhere I can see it.
We'll zoom in so you can see.
Okay. So like I said to Josh, if like we get to a stage where you feel like I don't want to go down that path, or like you say something, you're like, actually, I might just reframe that because that sounded way too harsh or not quite what I was going for. We can do that.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not going to do that. Maggie's really good at doing that.
Yeah, nice.
And I'll be like,
hi, Maggie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, she and like my mom are the only two people that are going to listen to the podcast.
True, yeah.
So,
hi, Mum.
with your parents, we'll double our listenership.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So super easy from the start. Shameless plug. Who are you? Where are we?
Yeah. So my name's Chris Ackland. I'm the owner of Iron Tribe Weightlifting Club in Carrum Downs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Good. Okay, so mostly the reason for this podcast is for like my own selfish reasons, personal reasons. Yeah. Like everything else I do. Yeah. And basically I find people that are on a similar journey to myself, where they've kind of turned their back on potentially that standard 9 to 5 grind in order to pursue their passion, and are now making a living off something they actually love doing rather than doing like shit that they feel they should do. Super interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess the whole point of the podcast is trying to collaborate with those people, get a better idea of what other people out there in a similar situation to me are doing. Like I said, for my own selfish reasons, and wanting to learn from other people that are out there. And definitely appear to be doing it well. You might turn around and tell me, well, appearances and everything.
Oh, it's going really well, Tracy.
But I think as soon as I decided that I want to do a podcast, I knew I was going to want to sit down with you.
Yep.
I think that probably all of our conversations we've had over the last, 6 months, 12 months now?
Yeah, close to 12 now.
Yeah, we should have most of those recorded.
Yeah.
Just so everyone's comfortable, we've got a layout here in front of us, because the way that I tell a story is the same way Ackers tells a story. And I think if we don't have
that backstory,
some grounding points, then we're never going to get through. So I definitely want you to talk.
Yeah, cool. I'll do my best.
And I think that the best place to start, I mean, obviously we're here at Iron Tribe, which is an awesome facility. We might do a little tour in a little bit. But I think this is kind of the moment we're at the present, but I'm more interested in how we got to this point.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you want to start right from the beginning, take us back to, as far as you want to go. When was the first time you started weightlifting? When did you know you enjoyed it? And definitely I want to hear about like when you decided this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
To the detriment of everything else.
Well, yeah, screw everybody else type thing. Nah, so how it all started was I was working at a CrossFit box, and I just wanted to learn a little bit more. And so my brother asked if I wanted to go to a daunting seminar. And
who's that?
Daunting, how does you not know who that is? No one will know who that is. So daunting was like an American weightlifter, and at the time he was doing a tour of Australia and just teaching people how to snatch and clean and jerk. And I knew that it was a sport, but I didn't know anything about it because I was introduced through CrossFit, and I was only going it to, one, be a better coach, and two, learn how to do it better myself. So what ended up happening was we went to this seminar, and I think at the time my best deadlift was like 160 kilos, and I felt really, really good about that. And then I watched this man snatch 170 kilos before my eyes, and oh my God, what am I doing with my life? And just the way that he talked about the sport. Like I've always played team sports. I'd always been like considered myself some form of an athlete. And then listening to him talk about the process, he had this poetic voice. And if you've ever heard him speak, or if you haven't, go and listen to him talk on YouTube somewhere. He's the size of a giant, but has a voice of an angel type thing. Like the way that he would talk about, he would sit down in between his snatch attempts and he would run you through what's going through his mind. And like weightlifting is more a mental sport than a physical sport for some people, in that they're physically capable of doing great things, but mentally they're not prepared to do those things yet. Mm-hmm. And so the journey kind of started from there. I then came back, and my boss at the time, Nick, from what was then CrossFit Burwood, which became Box Hill and is now Move.
Also another guest on the podcast.
Is he coming on, is he?
Yeah.
Nice.
Going to sit down, yeah.
Yeah. And so he saw my passion for it and encouraged me to start taking the weightlifting class. And at the time, we were in a relatively small gym, which meant giving up a whole class. So instead of having the 5:30 CrossFit class and then say a 6:30 CrossFit class, the 6:30 CrossFit class became weightlifting. And for a long time, it was probably one of our more popular classes. And I just sunk my teeth in and made a million mistakes. I told people to do things wrong. I told, like, if it worked for me, I'd tell them how anything, classic early.
You're not a nutritionist.
yeah.
You're an Instagram nutritionist.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it worked really well. Like over time, like we would go to CrossFit competitions, and we're relatively short, and we weren't a physically big gym, but we had guys lifting competitive weights, and it wasn't, I don't take any credit of it. It was just the crew that I had were willing to learn from someone who was willing to learn on the spot. And that then kind of fueled, and after a while, like I would try to come back to CrossFit and I'd do the open, or it's not for me. Like I really, really enjoy what CrossFit's done for strength sports for myself personally. But the process behind weightlifting was something that I wanted to sink my teeth into. And then over time, my personal training clients became weightlifters. Everything just became about weightlifting. From there, want me to keep going from there?
Yeah. Of course, mate.
Yeah, well, just in case you want intervals.
People are sick of hearing my voice. Yeah. I guess it's all about everybody.
And then so what ended up happening was I was at Box Hill for, I want to say, 4 years. And I proposed to my fiance at the time, and I was starting to think about 5 years from now, which is something that I don't normally do. I normally kind of take it 1 week at a time, and similar to yourself, like to start multiple projects and just deal with it as it goes, putting out fires one fire at a time.
Which is why you get married.
Yeah.
Someone to help put the fires out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks,
and so what ended up happening was I talked to Tracy about it, and she, as always, was in her voice, in her words, was really supportive. In her eyes, there was pure fear. So she's super supportive, and then
super supportive.
Yeah, super supportive. And trust me. And then so I talked to Nick. I said, look, this is something I want to, like at that time, Iron Tribe had already started. The branding had started in 2016.
Out of CrossFit Build.
Or at the time, CrossFit Box Hill. Yeah. Just through a few things that happened, and I talked to Nick about it and said that if I want to make more money, do you mind if I brand myself? And he was totally okay with it. I made some mistakes along the way I remember one time I purchased merchandise and didn't even think to ask what Nick charges for his merchandise, just charged because I just wanted people to wear it. So I think I made like $2 or $3 a shirt. And
$5 less than
just undercutting Nick like no one's business. And he didn't get angry or anything. He messaged like, hey, maybe just next time, give me a heads up or whatever. So, it kind of just started from there. And all my personal training clients were starting to wear it, and the Box Hill members were wearing it. And then eventually I got engaged, and I kind of wanted to explore it further. And it all literally started were in my gym at home, which I built with a friend of mine, Jace. And I say I built, Jace built it.
And my friend, you mean?
My brother. I just drank the whole time.
Yeah.
And
supervising.
Yeah, supervising.
It's much like coaching.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Born to do it.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was I remember saying to Jace, some figure, like if someone would pay me X amount of dollars and I could finish work at 3:30 every day, I would quit coaching CrossFit and I would just start coaching from home. Because that's the hard part. I'd made this name for myself in an area. I had enough clients, I had enough personal training clients. I was getting paid enough from Nick to make a living. But that jump to come down this way where no one knew who I was, no one really knows what weightlifting is, was the biggest probably barrier. And so I started taking some clients from home, and it was like my dad, Jace, my brother-in-law, and then a friend of ours, Bryce, who's like a good friend of ours now. And so they're the first four guys I started coaching individually, and then slowly into this one group of just guys just trying to get strong. And then what ended up happening was we were there one night, and I said, if someone give me some amount of money, I'll work my butt off, but I'll be done at 3:30. I'll come home and I'll start taking classes here. And he was like, I'll give you a job. Jace this is. And I was like, I thought about it and I was like, it'd be silly to not give this a crack. And so anyway, I thought about it and then I talked to Nick from CrossFit Box Hill, and I told him my plan and he said, look, it sounds like you've already kind of made up your mind. Like, it'd be silly not to. And then I started helping build buses of all things. That was the job that I would do. I remember it so clearly because I would have to I was trying to get Zen Planner set up, which is an America customer management software. The only times that I could do were 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They'd run me through how to do Zen Planner. I'd be out the door by 6 o'clock, at the factory by 6:30, work through till 3:30 in the afternoon. If I didn't do overtime that day, I'd then come home. The clients would start 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then at first it was only the boys, but then over time it built. So then I'd have clients from say 5 till 9:30. And then I had remote clients because some of the Box Hill members and some other people from around the state were still programming, let me do their programming. And then I would do remote programming until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then I'd go to bed and I'd do it again. That kind of went on for around 6 months. And I remember Jace, when he gave me the job, was like, just do me a favor and don't burn me. Don't burn me. Just give me as much notice as you can. We were starting to get the factory we were going through the process to get the factory. And my original plan was just to do night classes because we were burst at the seams at home because it's this tiny 1-car garage. There's only 2 places to go overhead. We had to build a platform outside and we had a floodlight on it. It was just old school and it was really, really good fun. And we burst at the seams and it was time to take the jump. And what ended up happening was, where was it? So I put in an application to start taking strength and conditioning in high school. And then the application was accepted and it was starting in 4 weeks or something. Maybe it was in 3 weeks. And the factory was going through and everything was kind of happening at the same time. And that was going to allow, the business was going to lose money, but that was going to allow us to step foot in our own place with what we had. And then it was then it was the race to get to a certain amount of members so that we would then be kind of breaking even and going from there. And so I remember telling Jace, I was like, he would have been thinking, what have I done? I remember one time we were walking past and when we were going through the process to get the factory, he must have seen me freaking out. I was like, what's going on? Thinking it was to do with work. And I was like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I should make the jump. Because I was making really good money doing what I was doing and I was training at night and it was this could, I'm going to be going backwards again, going backwards to then start all over again type thing. And he's like, mate, what's the worst that can happen? He's like, worst case scenario, you end up back here. Yeah. You'll always have a job either here or anywhere else. There's no dramas in that. So I was like, and this was the first time I'd hipped out and then got the offer come through from the school. I was like, great, am I? And then so a few days later, Jace walked past and I was like, dude, I need to talk to you. I think I have to finish up in 3 weeks. And he's like,
you fucking burnt me.
You burnt me. That's exactly what I told you not to do. And we're still
friends with Jay. So
still really good mates.
Obviously wasn't too bad.
So obviously it wasn't too bad, but it was just, it all happened so quickly and so falling forward type thing. And then it was 3 weeks later, we got the keys to the factory. And then I remember
this factory
that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And I remember because the power wasn't up and Tracy, who I was the rock the whole way through. Tracy, I said earlier, was she's very, very supporting, but obviously she has her fears, as anyone would when you're partnered with me.
Most patient woman in
the world, yeah. And so I remember we got the keys. I finished work. I came here. There was no power, of course. So we ordered fish and chips and we had the roller door up halfway.
Typical weightlifting nutrition.
100%. Yeah. Had that. Some beers. Yeah. Couple of monsters. And I remember when we rocked up to open it, Tracy filmed it. It's actually in our Facebook group. You can go back and find it. And we go to put the key in the door and the door's unlocked. And then I didn't think anything about it. And it was fine. And then about 4 days later, once we'd moved everything in, we'd started painting walls, I started freaking out thinking that it was factory 9, not factory 6. And I've just moved into this factory and just painted the walls. There's equipment drilled in the holes. Turns out it was fine. But And then, yeah, that's literally, that's 18 months ago now. We've been in the factory for 18 months. And I think when we moved into the factory, we had 10 members, 11 members maybe, and we still have 10 of those 11. And we've just, grown from strength to strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you for that. That was a really good.
That was a short version.
Yeah, that was a short version. Yeah.
I didn't go back far enough to the twinkle in my dad's eye.
There was there's a few points in there that I kind of want to reiterate and touch on. And the first question I guess I'll ask you is like, how long from when you did that seminar was it until you opened up the factory door?
It was
3 years, 4 years.
It was 3 years until Iron Tribe was born, the brand.
Yeah.
And then it was probably 5 years until I was in our factory.
Yeah. I think that's generally one of the points that tends to get missed.
Yeah, overnight success.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
No.
Right. And I think this is also something that Josh spoke a lot about too, is, I asked him, look, if you could go back and tell yourself or give some advice to someone who's thinking about it, like what would your advice be? And Josh's point, if anyone wants to listen to that podcast, we'll link it. Yeah. But his advice is like, you have to be patient. You have to be patient. And I think that especially in, I hate saying like today's day and age where everything is like so instantaneous, so gratifying. Like people, you think that like, oh, I'm 20, I'm 25. It's too late. It's too late to take 5 years to build a project. Or, I'm earning, and I like coming from the same thing, like working at a finance company. It's like, I don't want to take a 50, 60, 70% pay cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like, to then hear another story where someone else is like, it's a 5-year process. And, when you have a 5-year goal, I mean, you probably knew it was going to be 5 years from the outset, given that. So I think that's like one point that I really wanted to iterate there. The second point that I want to hear a little bit more about is that moment of doubt. You spoke about like the first time you kind of ran into doubt. And that I want to hear a little bit more about how you process that, how you...
I cried.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? It comes to a point where you're standing on the ledge, and too many people just come back down.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, what I'm really interested in is like, what was it in the end? Was it Jay saying like, "We're at your worst case scenario," that made you realize like, I've got nothing to lose?
Yep.
And because I know that even once you make the jump, like, it's just the start of really that fear, and then all of a sudden, you're paying a mortgage on the factory, paying rent and rent's due, and like all these things start to add up, which. For what I see, a lot of coaches that don't have a lot of business experience open a facility and then get like their first set of bills and just be like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm running all these classes, but I'm not making any money.
Come from? Yeah, absolutely.
So there's another one of my long-winded 6-part questions.
I like it.
But if we just start,
part one,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, definitely.
But before I do you want me to turn that off?
Yeah, sure.
Do
you want to check this water? Is that all right?
Yeah. Or coconut water?
It's water's fine. It's water.
All
that talking.
Yeah, I know, right?
That listening.
It's
driving me out.
I have to do that same thing when I do any form of recording here, and I'll get halfway through, and then that thing will come in the background, like, wow. So back to your first question, and I've talked about this to a number of people. I'll always hear when I've caught up with a bunch of people in the last few years, and some of them will say that you're so lucky to be doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I do. I mean, I am lucky. I'm very thankful for what I get to do and the opportunity that I have. But
luck isn't the right word.
No, and that's the thing. It's like I think people are looking. They're looking for this moment where they're like to their boss, "Fuck you, I'm out of here," and then it just all starts and everything just kind of falls into place. And even one of my good friend of mine, Cam, who I would consider quite successful in pretty much all walks of life. He, like everyone, people around him would say he's super lucky. And I used to live with that guy when he started. I actually helped him start that business. By help, I mean I was just there for it. But this guy would
integral.
Yeah, 100%. I'm written there as a founder. Didn't do anything. But like I was there and I watched. I lived in the same house as him with his daughter. He had a 3-year-old daughter at the time, and so as soon as he'd wake up at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, his foot would hit the floor, work would begin. he would then work until his daughter was up. He would then take his daughter to school. Work would go again. He would then work through till 3:30 or priest or whatever it is, childcare. He'd then walk through, pick her up, play with her for 2 to 3 hours, feed her, put her on the bed, and then keep working. And same thing, people would be like, "Oh, he's so lucky." He just got to stop working.
Yeah.
And still now, when his business is in a position where potentially he doesn't have to work, he still does work. Like he knows if he takes his finger off the pulse, it kind of dies down.
Yeah. I think there's two things in that. I think that luck, I think the expression I really like is like, oh, luck is just opportunity meeting preparation.
Yeah.
Right. Like that kind of crossroad. And I think that's completely true. Like you do, the more you work and the harder you grind, obviously the more opportunities that become present to you, but it's not luck.
No, yeah.
And I think that anyone running their own business knows that there's not a ton of luck involved. Right. Yeah. And there might be luck in the sense of you meet people at the correct time and things just pan out. Right. But I think you still have to be putting yourself in a position to have those opportunities come to fruition. But yeah, I think funny that you would touch on that story of Cam with a young family.
Yeah.
Because I think that's sort of a great segue into the next part of the conversation that I want to talk about is working that grind and working those long hours and making it all happen and working on the dream and et cetera. How do you strive to still try to create balance and make time for balance? And I know, even having balance with your partner, with Trace, is one thing. When she's been there from the beginning, I guess you kind of adapt to it as you go. But and I'm gonna drop the bomb because I know you've told people, but obviously you guys are expecting.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to hear, like,
maybe don't release that until we've announced it to everybody.
Oh, you haven't yet?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Just our close friends.
All right. How long is that?
A week or so, I'd say.
Okay, so by the time I get through editing,
hopefully, yeah. Or Maggie gets through editing.
Yeah. Mags, put this on the back burner. Josh just but I guess, is that something you've thought about? Like, from what I hear from other parents, it's a pretty big change.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, is that something you've thought about? Like, will that change the way that you approach Iron Tribe, the way that you try to set Iron Tribe up, just in terms of being able to make sure you do have some balance? Because I think, and this is as well something that Josh said, was like, I'm no good at balance. Like, I'm completely all in 100% with Control Chaos and weightlifting platform.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that is certainly a trap that you fall into, but in no way is that, if we're looking 5 years again down the plan, like, you don't want to be not seeing your child grow up because you're working on the business.
It's funny you kind of mentioned that, because that story of balance is why I actually became a personal trainer in the first place. Like, kind of backstory, longer ago than the initial 2013.
Fantastic. Let's go.
I'd been with Tracy for probably about a year and a bit at that time, and I was moving furniture for a living. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed it. It was super physical. You got
Plenty fresh air.
What's that? Plenty fresh air. Like, it was super physical. Like, there was definitely tough days, and by the end of it, I was completely over it. But the crew that you work with, the guys that you work with, were just such good guys. Enjoyed driving the trucks. There were so many things I enjoyed about it, but you got the main thing was you got rewarded for the hours you worked. So, like, double time and a half, all these different types of things. And I can remember being there and at a job, and there was a guy who was calling his son, and he was calling his son to say that he couldn't take him to cricket practice, and he was gutted because he'd missed all of cricket practices, because summer is the busy time for moving furniture, and I was like, well,
I didn't realize the furniture moving industry was seasonal.
Very seasonal. Things,
They get wet furniture.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember looking at it and being like really enjoying the paycheck coming in, but
at what cost, right?
Yeah, like, that's not what I want to do. Like, that's not, like, I want to be the dad that at least 1 or 2 mornings a week takes his kid to school. I want to be the dad that is there for all the football, cricket, ballet, whatever it is. As much as I'll probably hate it at the time, like, it's what I want to do. It's something that my dad did for me. Like, looking around friends of mine at the time, that was normal, but it wasn't normal. And that's what actually made me start thinking about finding a job. And that was another conversation I had with Tracy about, hey, I'm thinking about, turning in all this money to potentially go and be a PT. And she was like, I think you should do it. And again, it started the same way the factory started. I was working 5 days a week, and I started interning at CrossFit Bellwood at the time. And then I went, and then I started getting paid eventually. And then I would just help people. And then eventually people were like, stop helping me and let me pay you. And then that became the first, because I'd finished my course. I'd done my course while I was doing removals anyway. And then I went from 5 days to 4 days moving furniture, and then slowly made the jump, like moved back home with mum and dad so that I didn't have as much outgoings. And then, it kind of started that whole slow way. And that's why I built Iron Tribe, is that I don't get me wrong, like if this fails, I'll probably always be a weightlifting coach. Like there's just something about the sport that I love. It's something about when people find themselves that I just, what it's done for me personally, I hope to do that for others.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason for starting Iron Tribe is so that 2 or 3 nights a week, I can be sitting, freezing my butt off at a football field, or 2 mornings a week, walking the kids to school. Like,
just get him into weightlifting, and then they're just going to come.
The trick is not to force them. Just act like, no, you don't want to do this. It's so boring, and make it look really fun. But so that was the whole reason of kind of doing this. And I suck at balance. Like, I think as bosses, you can get quite addicted to the work, and you can create a lot more work for yourself than there really is.
There's always something to do, right?
Always something to do. What is Parkinson's law, right? You've got a million hours in the day to do a job. Like,
it takes a million hours.
Yeah, I get the most amount of stuff done 15 minutes before people walk in for their first class.
Yeah.
And I might have been here for 2 hours. And then I just get on a roll, like, someone's walking out, like, oh my God, don't talk to me, I'm killing it. Like, and that's what I'm trying to build. And with a little one on the way, I'm fortunate enough to have.
You heard it here first.
That's it. Yeah.
Exclusive.
Yeah. And like, I'm fortunate enough to have, we have Grace as a coach here. And like, with little one on the way, and if we didn't have Grace, I wouldn't know what I would do. Like, we've got, as you would know, heard it here first too. Hey guys.
Yeah. That one hasn't even been announced to anyone yet. So.
Hasn't it?
Maggie just slowed down the editing.
Let's stop that there. With the little one on the way, and with Grace there, we've been able to go to meetings, and even a few months ago, I was able to take my first holiday as a business owner, which sounds crazy to me. Me and Tracy got to go to Japan, and I was able to lean on Grace and so many other people, Sam, Cam, Alistair, and the business didn't burn down, which is kind of what you want as a business owner.
Well, I think that's a real test too of where the business is relative to where you think it is, and how well it's doing as a business, and not as Chris Ackland weightlifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Which is the whole purpose for branding.
Yeah.
Right. Is that you want to build something that is bigger than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's generally the difference between people who start their own business in terms of providing a service or providing a product. I think that the people out there who are genuinely trying to provide a service, it's a service that they found super helpful, super beneficial. And it is that empowerment of wanting to help others. I know that's definitely for us.
Yep.
For MTMM, how that all started and why we started doing it and how we kind of went down this track was both Kat and I having those issues with nutrition and trying to figure it all out, and just being in a mess of information and bullshit, and wanting to try to provide that we can let us actually help you. And I think that's pretty similar to what you're doing here, and I think that's essentially definitely knowing you. It's so easy to see that in what you've built and the way that you coach and the way that you coach it, that it's not just a job.
No,
right?
No.
You give a fuck. And I think as long as you give a fuck, and as long as people can tell that you care about them and their progress and everything that they're doing, I think you can't fail.
Yeah.
You could make some pretty bad choices,
financial choices.
Yeah,
for sure.
Probably
black,
put it all on red and whatever else and fail that way. But I think even then you probably still have a pretty decent following going back with you to
for sure.
And I think that's the goal at the end of the day. And I think when you do what we've done and you leave jobs that are quite well paying, it's because you understand money's not the end game.
Not at all.
Obviously you want to make enough money to eat and pay rent and pay mortgage, and especially give the kids that you're having to be able to provide for them as well. But I think if it was the end goal, you wouldn't have that same passion, that same drive.
No, not at all. And even with the little one on the way, yeah, it's given me like a little bit better of a focus as to like certain metrics that kind of matter, and doubling down on like what worked in that first 12 months. And that was caring. Like the conversation that me and Grace have in like our team meetings are always like the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes matter the most. Like I don't like, I wasn't a good weightlifting coach initially. Like, I don't think I'm a good weightlifting coach now. Like, I think that, and that's what, but that's what forces me to kind of keep studying. But I do think I connect really well with people. And I think that's what allows me to help people get the best out of themselves, is the fact that like, they know that I care enough that if I couldn't help them, if I didn't think I could help them, I would find someone better. Which is not a business model to go by, but I also know that I care enough that I'll find the answer.
I think when you do care enough and you get to know the people you're working with, the cues that you are able to give them to correct what they need is not necessarily come from advanced technical understanding and analysis of the subject matter, but more like your depth of understanding of that person and how to make it relatable, or how to make the penny drop and that sort of stuff. And I think there's definitely, when you know personalities, some people need more carrot and less stick, and some people are the opposite.
Yeah,
if you just 100%. Have a one size fits, approach fits all.
Yeah, drill sergeant.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Or it doesn't work the other way either.
Yeah.
Right? Like, some people you have to ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? To get the best. And they know that.
Yeah.
And that's why they're here.
Yeah.
Because if they don't come and you don't crack the whip, they're not going to do anything.
No, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Cool. That was good. That was a good chat.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
That's what we do.
Okay, so we've had the 5-year plan to get us from the start. We've overcome all the fear. We've opened the factory. We've opened the doors. What's the next 5 years look like in the Fine Tribe?
That's a good question.
You still want to be on the coaching floor in 5 years?
Yeah. So my ideal, if I could pick my ideal 5 years from now, I would have a few gym owners I know build the business so that they don't have to be on the coaching floor as much. And they end up going into management, and they go into focusing on
branding.
Yeah. Building the brand and building the systems. And I'd still want to do those things, but I still want to coach. Like, that's why I got into this. So my preference would be to potentially hire someone to do a lot of that back end stuff for me. The stuff that I can't do, that it just doesn't fit into my working week, or becomes counterproductive to my coaching. And I think that's the beauty of being in a business, is that I can do that for 5 years. And then if over time I find there's a coach who's more passionate, who's better than I am at it, then maybe take a step back and focus on other areas. But yeah, if I could pick my ideal 5 years from now, it would be, like I said, being able to pick my kids up from school at least one couple days a week and take them to a few sporting events, and be on the coaching floor. I don't have necessarily ambitions for I don't want to be the best weightlifting gym in Australia in terms of athletes that we produce. I think I want to be just I want to have the best community. I want to get to the point of where we get to X amount of members. I think I said in my mind, if we get 120 members, I'd probably close membership, and I would let my members know that this has now become and I would tell them that anyone that walks in has to do one-on-one personal training sessions. So then that way, my thought process is that at a lot of, say, my experience with CrossFit is that what typically happens is someone rolls in, they're brand new, they get all the coaching. Someone that's been there for 3 or 4 years, they get a little bit less coaching the longer they're there for, because they're more advanced. They know what they're doing. And
they're not much at risk.
No, exactly right. They're not as much at risk, but they're there because they're not paying $60, $70, $80 a week to not be coached. And they're not paying it. The community can be great, but they're still chasing being better. That's why they rock up every day. And so if I could get to a position where even my members that have been there for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years are getting equally as much coaching as the members that have been there for 6 or 12 months from myself, from my coaching staff, I think that we'll just find some amazing athletes that will do great things in the sport. But that's not the be all end all. Like I said, I don't think I'm a great weightlifter in terms of athletic, but it's given me purpose outside of my working life, outside of my personal life. It's something that I can focus on getting better in. It's not business related and not relationship related. And if I can give someone that 90-minute escape, where they, even if they've been there for 5 years, they still feel just as supported as the first year that they were in there. Like, I don't think there's many gyms that are doing that. I think it just becomes this revolving door of like, well, they've been here for 4 years, they left. Like, there's not much we could do. They're bored. Like, and I don't think I need to shake up what we're doing to do that. I just think that they need to know that they care the same amount that I cared when they walked in the doors.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the vision that I've got at the moment. Like, I'm probably back to more planning 3 months, 6 months at a time. But like the direction that we're going, like I'm super happy with. The community that we've got, I'm super proud of. The coach, like Grace, is killing it. And yeah, I'm excited for it all.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because it is, everyone wants to feel the love.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that definitely comes to a point where definitely it's a double-edged sword, right? Because like the bigger you get and the more prominent the brand, well, the more people you're going to reach, and potentially the more people you can attract to give the best 90 minutes of their time.
Yeah.
Right? But that also comes with like its own problems in growing too much, and then wanting to cap classes, and then people getting, potentially like it's your original members that all of a sudden never had to reserve their spot in a class, and they've been coming to the 5 p.m. class for 3 years and now like can't get in.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's, again, like good problems to have, but like problems nonetheless.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
You touched on it just before as well, and we did speak about balance in terms of family, but I think that's another interesting point to chat about is balance as an athlete, right? Like you yourself, you're still a competitive weightlifter.
Yeah.
We're at nationals in Canberra, you competed. I'm guessing the goal is to have another run at it again this year.
Yeah.
And so how do you, we talk about small business owners and it being a problem to find balance, but how do you then as well create even more space in the day for giving your athletic, like going to nationals is no just like guarantee,
no,
right?
Yeah.
And as the sport which you're such a part of, working to grow and get bigger and gets more and more athletes, like the standard gets better and better. So how do you mate, after that comp we did a into performance,
yeah,
I walked off after hitting my second clean and jerk, and Kat goes, I remember 5 years ago that would have made you an elite CrossFitter. I'm like, yeah, thanks.
Let's go back to that time.
Yeah, let's go back. But yeah, so I'm interested to hear, how do you then work to make sure that you are getting your training in? I know when you open your space, everyone just assumes you're at the gym 12 hours a day. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. You can't find time to train. But
100%.
How do you, do you have, are you blocking off time in your calendar that's like, hey, this is if I'm going to give everyone else these 90 minutes, this is going to be my 90 minutes of the day where I'm just going to do me?
Yep.
That's what you're doing?
Yeah, kind of. So like I struggled the first probably 6 to 12 months. My training
took a last place in
100% last place. I would still train, but it was like at no intensity, at no consistency. It was literally like
11 o'clock at night.
Well, yeah, just weird. Yeah, weird times. And I wouldn't even write myself a program. I would just go and do what was fun at the time. Like, and for me, that's snatches and back squats, just to make me feel better. Yeah. So what, like, but the last year or so, like I've been in the sport now for 5 years, and I made nationals my first year when the entry total had been lowered significantly to increase participation.
Those are the days.
Yeah. And like since then, I remember qualifying in 2 weight classes, and since then that total has gone up. At the time, that weight class was a 77 kilo weight class. I ended up going at 69, and now that's the 81 kilo weight class. And at the time, I think I qualified with like a 190 something kilo total. And now it's 257 kilos. And I've missed out more years than I've made it. And like last year was kind of like, how it happened was like a kind of a whirlwind. My training had started going relatively well. And like,
you met us.
I met you guys. Yeah. My nutrition just went, so like I started training a little bit more consistently, and I started thinking, well, like, look, if I can't get better off 3 days a week, how can I expect those around me to do the same? I also have this theory that like old school weightlifting is very like, as soon as possible, get them training 5 days a week, as heavy as often.
Bulgarian max out every session.
Yeah, like just push them, right?
GBT.
Yeah, just
10
push
by
them
10s all the way.
And like, I mean, the old school weightlifting, people that were there were like, they weren't hobbyists. They were there to be really, really good. Whereas our gym has all sorts of levels. People that don't really care too much about their snatch and clean and jerk. Yeah, for sure they want it to go up, but they're not losing sleep at night over it.
Yeah.
They're just here to be better and like get a sweat on and have a bit of fun with like-minded people.
Throw out some high fives.
Throw out some, fist bumps, high fives, like celebrate other people's success as well. Makes them feel better being around other people doing really well. And so like one of my girls asked me like, hey Chris, should I, like, she's got some big goals, and I keep telling her like weightlifting is like it's a marathon. Like the best athletes,
Patience, right?
The best athletes have been doing it now for 12 years.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch them overnight. You're going to catch them just by pegging away slowly at it. And so she trains 3 days a week. She's seen what I would call really, really good progress. And to her, it might seem quite slow. But she's training 3 days a week. She's not burning the candle at both ends. Like, yeah, she has tough training sessions, but it hasn't been like a tough slog compared to some other weightlifters out there who are training 5 days a week, 2.5 hour sessions, sometimes even 3 hour sessions. And so like my theory was like, let's see how good I can get people off the minimum effective dose. And then when they stop improving on 3 days a week, go to 4. When they stop improving on 4, unless they're like young and they're like,
They can take the beating.
They can take the beating, and they've got like they're living at home, or they're like they've got their work life circumstances are much more suited to being the best.
4 hours full-time uni a week.
Yeah, like
struggling, find time to train.
And that's like because everyone's in such different positions, and only now this girl's been with him for 18 months, and only now we've gone to 4 days a week, and it's not that the 4th day is heavy or anything like that. It's to focus on consistency, technique, and that's pretty much all I've done with my own training. And it was like, find the consistency that I ask of my members. Don't try and force it, because when you force it, that's when injuries happen. That's when you burn out. And don't look at what other people are doing. Like the best thing I ever did was to stop looking at other weightlifters in my weight class and see what they're doing, because me as a 32-year-old guy was comparing myself to someone that was 24 that lived at home potentially with mum and dad.
Trying to train with Cam.
Trying to train with Cam, right?
Yeah.
Like, who lives and breathes his nutrition, who lives and breathes his training, and yes, studies and has part-time jobs. But, if I have a bad week, that could mean financial issues, relationship issues. It could mean a lot of things worse than a bad training week.
Yeah.
And so, like it's kind of given me a better focus. Like my goal this year, like the national title's gone up, plus I've gone up a weight class. So it's made it even significantly harder again. I'm still going to have a crack. When you put it down on a piece of paper and you say it's only 10 kilos on both of my potential maxes that I might have hit in my dream one time, it could happen.
Is that it?
Yeah. So, and the other thing, the reason why I keep going is that, like, there'll come a point in my career, my athletic career, where I will have snatched and have clean and jerked the most amount of weight I can. That's just the way it works. Like, but whether it's 40s, 50s, whatever it is, there'll potentially come a point where I will not snatch and clean and jerk anymore. But I'll probably still do it. I'm just addicted to the process. I'm addicted to saying, well, can I get better even as I age, even as my testosterone goes down, even as I have less time with kids? Like what is the limit of improving someone's performance with that kind of minimum effective dose?
Yeah.
And that doesn't give you the results for being the best possible athlete. But if I do it for long enough, the other thing as well is like you have these flash in the pan athletes that come out of nowhere that are just phenomenal and they crush it and they'll win at nationals. They might make an edge team and then they disappear.
Yeah.
Either through burning out or through that was too easy or through whatever it is. I don't want to be that guy. Like I want to be that guy that they're like, oh, as bad as it is, Chris just keeps rocking up. He's having fun lifting.
More tape than a fucking mummy.
Yeah.
But he's
and that's the other thing I try to push to athletes is like, I have no injuries. Touch wood. Like I don't push myself to that point of like if I'm sore and I can't do something, so be it.
Do something else.
Yeah, I'll do something else. Like it's not the end of the world. Like weightlifting is built around, say, the front squat and the back squat. If I have to hack squat or belt squat or something it is because something aggravates a back or something, I will do that. So I was trying to be like still, because the the people who have got repeated results in weightlifting are definitely to be listened to. But with the generation changing and the clientele changing, and I mean, it wasn't even a profession. Coaches used to volunteer at times, only just a few years ago. So yeah, it's that athletic side of things. Like I think I have the potential to do those numbers. Like last year, if I got my jerks right, I potentially would have clean and jerked the 140. Didn't get my snatches right, but I think that was just due to being a lighter body weight. And I'm too tall for the weight class that I was in. And I get slow. I can keep my strength, but I just get slow when I'm tall and skinny. So yeah, the weekend I competed 2 weeks ago just for a bit of fun and did much better than kind of what was planned, and was like, maybe I shouldn't just throw in the towel in nationals and just give it a proper crack. Not go over and above and beyond, but just do the 3-4 days consistently, rock up. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it also proves to clients that, like, well, I took a shot.
Yeah.
Took a shot. And what happened? I
go again next year. Booted out of Iron Tribe, right?
No, yeah, 100%. It's if I didn't set a lofty goal, what else? Like, if let's say I set that 257 total and I hit 250, it probably would have been better if I hadn't have set that goal at all.
Yeah.
I probably would have finished exactly where I am now, maybe a 2 kilo bumper on both lifts.
And I think, even I obviously am hugely in favor of goal setting. I think you want to set goals that are within reach, but I think the longer that you've been doing this, the more you understand that this is a lofty goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Or this is a realistic goal, or this is a goal that is not worth writing down on
Yeah.
paper. But I definitely think that, not doing that, you're still spending your 2-3 sessions a week in the gym, and it's a long time to be sitting down next year having an update and you being like, hey, my numbers are still exactly the same.
Yeah, right? For sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think the other thing that I really enjoy about, and so far I've only interviewed weightlifting coaches, which is strange because I would say out of Kat and myself, Kat is the weightlifter.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would still say that my heart still lies within the CrossFit realm.
But I think building.
Yeah, / pro building, mostly just bench and bike.
Yeah.
But I think definitely the more that I've spoken and gotten to know you and Josh and a couple of the others, the more appreciation I definitely have for weightlifting. And I think the more that I do CrossFit and the more that you have to do Olympic weightlifting, the more appreciation you have for just how technical and how hard and crushing that it can be. But one thing that I have really enjoyed talking about and getting to hear from guys like Josh and yourself is just that general excitement that you have to try to shine more of a light on the sport. Right? And I think that's probably weightlifting, from what I can see, the biggest obstacle for Olympic weightlifting is still its own obscurity.
100%.
Right? And I think that it's, there are some phenomenal weightlifters out there, but I don't think that I know anyone who is just born and bred a weightlifter. It's all, I came through CrossFit or some sort of other avenue coming through a third party in order to find, what is an awesome community and what is a cool sport.
Yep.
And that's what I kind of love hearing is, especially the stuff with the Australian Open and that sort of stuff, is having young guys ourselves, yourself, Josh, actually actively working to put weightlifting, excuse the pun, on a platform.
Yep.
To create more exposure and to create more buzz and create more hype and to bring it out of the dungeon where it's you don't have to have 100 kilo snatch to come and play with us.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Grab the PVC pipe. Let's start working on your mobility. Let's see if we can get your arms straight out over your head, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's super awesome.
Yeah,
it's really cool. For people that are interested in maybe learning a little bit more about weightlifting, are there any, you mentioned, sorry, I forgot his name, the guy whose seminar you went to.
Donnie Shankle.
Yeah. Any other resources that you think are worth them having a look at, listening to?
So many. So the number one probably resource. Top three.
Yeah.
The number one resource would probably be Catalyst Athletics. They have, I remember reading their book when I first started coaching weightlifting and looking at it and being and just disregarding it, being it's too simple. Too simple. It has to be more difficult than this. And 6 years later being I need to read that book again because it is that simple. It's just, you have to continually do it.
Yeah.
And so their website has, I've actually got one of their, that performance journal is 500 blogs that they've written down. They put it into a book. And every now and then I just read through and find a cool one. Yeah, it's just, so they've got fantastic blogs written by weightlifters who have done it, written by coaches who have done it. They've got all the tutorial videos in the world in terms of just like the actual exercise. And then if you go into their website, it's got why you do it, when you do it, how you do it. So they're probably number one in the weightlifting world. Number two would be irontribe.com.au. No, we don't have anything yet. We will. We will. But yeah, so number two, the one that I probably go to the most.
2.5, number 2.5.
Number 2.5, because number one is Iron Tribe. Garage Strength, in terms of, I don't know what content he puts out. He was my coach for a little while remotely. And
his name is
Dane Miller from Garage Strength. And yeah, his Instagram is really, really good. Just for simple tips. And he's trained some absolute beast athletes. Another one who just kept his programming simple and produces continued results. And then the third one would probably be Juggernaut Training. They probably would actually be a bit above Garage Strength in terms of like media development and quality. And but sometimes they put content out. And like
the powerlifting crew, Juggernaut?
Yeah, so they do everything, powerlifting, CrossFit. But like you've got Chad Wesley-Smith, who predominantly does the powerlifting, and you got Max Ada, he does all the Olympic lifting, and they do super total and pro building and everything. But yeah, some of the content that they put out is like, I'll put it out and be like, that stuff, I had to learn that stuff on my own in a competition and make that mistake, and they're putting it out there. And I actually think it's really, really overlooked by some coaches, because most coaches aren't looking how to be a better coach in competition. They're looking how do I coach snatch?
Yeah.
And I think that's just such a small part of the sport. But yeah, so they're probably they're the three. So
do you think there's a little bit of reluctance somewhat for, and I definitely don't mean this for you because you're pretty open about, wanting to learn from the best in order to become better. But do you think there is reluctance from some people to almost take from a different resource and post their community and say, hey, like, I don't know everything, but like, here's a really good like example from someone who knows better than I, or knows more than I.
Absolutely. I think maybe not in the younger coaches. Like I know that there'd be some young coaches out there that would like to pass everything off as their own.
Yeah.
Me personally, I learned something like I was getting coached up to the nationals last year, and the way I kind of tell my athletes is shit kind of floats downhill, and if I'm getting punished by something, it's not too long until they're getting punished with the same thing. I'm
the same. I get crushed in a ward, I'm making everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, so like I think, but one thing that's kind of consistent with really good coaches is the best coaches. I've never met a really good coach that I have a lot of respect for be like, this is my method and I created this. They're always putting credit to the coaches before them.
And they don't all have the best numbers either.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I think too. It's like, just because you don't have a 180 snatch doesn't mean you can't.
Well, I do, but just not.
Just haven't done it in front of people.
Yeah, exactly. It's the invisible snatch. You can only see it when no one's around. Yeah, so 100% I agree. And I think when I first got into the sport, it was really actually hard to talk to some coaches, but mainly because they were volunteers. So they were there to coach their athletes. They weren't there to answer questions. And then they had to go home to their family. They weren't getting paid to do to volunteer.
Yeah.
But like one of the best coaches in Australia, who if you want to talk weightlifting, Miles Weidel, he runs probably the most successful weightlifting club in Australia, Cougars Weightlifting Club, in terms of like athletic development and consistently producing results over a 20, 30 year period. I remember one time I was having a bit of doubt with one of my athletes as to the direction I was going with them. And I messaged him like 4 years after I'd had an email conversation with him and caught up with him face to face in Brisbane. And he's like, I messaged him and then I emailed him, sorry. And then I left my phone number on the bottom and then he called me. And then we just talked on his lunch break at work, because he's another one of those coaches who volunteers his time. So he has a full-time job. And he called me and he's like, let's talk it through. What are you doing? What's your actual question? I didn't even hear a question in what you were saying. You just sound worried.
Sounds like a podcast with me. Did you get on there and talk about yourself?
I did. Yeah. Well, he did. Nah. And by the end of the phone call, I was confident in what I was doing. and we stayed the program, and like 2 weeks later, that person hit a PB. I was like, so it's like, you're right. The longer someone's been doing it for, I think they're more reluctant to be like, no one has any idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's no one tried and true method for everybody. It's trying to find the method, the community that fits that person and that person's lifestyle.
I think that's true of anything.
Anything in the world.
I think
the thing that annoys me the most is someone will see somebody and they're like, they're training 5 days a week. They're fasting 14 hours a day.
Keto.
They're keto. They don't sleep because sleep's for the week.
Yeah.
And they see this person and they're like, I want what that person has.
I'm gonna do that.
But that person has no life, no kids, no this. And it's like trying to find something that suits your circumstances. And that's the one thing I got from Miles was that he's like, look, I've had a program that has worked for four out of 5 people, and I've got to the 5th person, and it's made that person worse. So I had to then actually put my thinking cap on, be a coach, and figure out what works for them. He talks about one girl, she has to do all of her accessories at the start of each session because she refuses to do them by the end. So she'll do bodybuilding, squats, and then get into, say, snatches and clean and jerks.
Mm-hmm.
Like it goes against all, you can find so many evidence of,
priority principle,
paperwork that says that's going to make someone worse, but that girl gets better and better every single time. And same as with the girl I talked about in question who like wanted to train 5 days a week. I know that she's got quite a stressful job, and I know that she takes a lot of the burden on from her job. Me adding 2 more stressful days to her week when she's still improving, why? I think with weightlifting, fair enough. I love the process, and I can go through periods where I don't improve at all and be like, oh, I'm having so much fun.
It's a bigger picture.
But not a lot of people can do that. So it's like trying to find that balance for sure.
I think that's the trap too, when you have a new gym and you're getting new members that you don't necessarily have a personal connection to. There's almost pressure.
Give them a bit of what they want.
Yeah, or even to, I know definitely for us as nutritionists, when people err towards the side of like a shorter term, membership, it's taken us a long time to get to the point where it's like, I'm not going to approach what you need to do differently just because you want to think you can achieve it in a shorter time frame.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's taken us 3 or 4 years to get to that point.
Confidence.
But you still feel that pressure, right? Like if it's taken, 10 weeks or 11 weeks to get someone onto program and actually listening to what you're saying. And then the next week you're like, okay, well, like terms up, like, are we going to review or what are we going to do? It's like, they're like, oh, well, we haven't achieved what I set out to do. It's, I think it's definitely right. Like it's just time and it's being able to trust what you do. And I think that comes from experience and from being open that there are more than one ways to do things.
Yeah,
I remember being as a PT when you're like 20 or 21 and someone asks you something you don't really know anything about, it's like a threat.
Oh yeah.
Like you need to be the biggest authority. But 10 years on, and I realized the more and more I know and the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
100%.
And the more there is out there that I need to try.
The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
It's if I don't know something, I'll like, I don't know.
I think there's credit in that too when you say I don't know, but I will find out the answer because that gives more like substance to things that you are telling them that you do know.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you just know everything,
100%. And that's the thing I think some coaches can fall into the trap of is that thinking that they need to be the shining light, that the perfect example of like I think showing people that you made a mistake, that when you got stressed, you sat down, you had a whole pizza and you felt sorry for yourself afterwards, whatever it is, that's more relatable than the person who like constantly is perfect all the time, because that is shit. Like it just happens in life. And that's why what you guys do and like what we do, it's like the goal is to build habits that when you do get to that point that instead of it being a whole pizza, it's half a pizza. Or instead of it being like giving up training for 3 weeks straight because something got stressful outside of work, it's, coming into training and doing 45-minute sessions instead of the 90-minute sessions. Training once a week instead of 3 times. Whatever it is, it's just that falling or that failing forward. Same thing as when setting up a business. It's like if you were to wait to do it perfectly, you would never do it. And that's not saying you don't do the right precautions or anything like that, but it's do your due diligence
you get back up.
And
it's just how quickly you can get back up too.
100%. Just the setting habits. It's just something that even now, like I'm trying to protect myself from myself because I kind of view myself as this I'm trapped in a lazy man's body. And so I have to like set up certain things. Otherwise I won't do them.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I can also get addicted to doing a lot of work, but I might do 10 hours of work and achieve like an hour of actual work. I remember doing a time audit, which Nicole Avery, who trains across Box Hill as well, playing with kids. She's got a fantastic blog. She came to our gym and she gave this fantastic talk, and she's wanted people to do a time audit on their life. And I was like, I don't really do anything in my personal life, so let's do a time audit on my business life, because that's what's going to help me more in my personal life. So I did a time audit. It was like working an 80-hour week. And then, okay, cool. Let's actually put, what am I doing in those hours and how long should it take? And it was like, technically I'm accomplishing 30 hours worth of work in 80 hours. It's like, what am I doing? And, I was paying someone to clean the gym, and I was doing this, and it was like, well, I don't actually need to do something. It's almost like not a punishment, but if I'm not mastering my time, then I should be cleaning the gym floor. Like, what am I doing with 50 hours?
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, and I think it's definitely nowhere near perfect, but if I was to do a time audit again now and it was 70 or 60, it's getting better.
And just even being aware of it too, right?
It was a kick in the face, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can only make like informed decisions when they're informed.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Fantastic. Love that. Now, a couple of resources for mindset, small business. We've got the weightlifting ones. Obviously, there's a huge library behind you of books that are still in the covers that you've never actually read that you just put up for people to think that you're smart.
Just this podcast moment right here.
It's actually a painting.
I've read this one, which is a picture book.
These are the books that we do some reading on, the Harry
Potter series. Yeah. So in terms of business ones, I actually don't have it up here because what I have is I've lent most of them out.
Grit, I love reading that at the moment. Angela Duckworth.
Yeah, she's super
Carol Dweck Mindset is another good one. James Clear stuff is really good too. Anyway, I'm asking you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm telling you. The rest of the
business wise, probably number one book I read was The E-Myth by
Michael Gerber.
Hey guys, Michael Gerber. Yeah. So that one, I remember actually seeing Nick read it at Box Hill after he'd had a business coach come in and being like, oh, if he's reading that, I probably want to read that. And actually when I left Box Hill, I already had a lot of my business systems in place, even though I didn't even have a business. Mm-hmm. And all of that was modeled off Gerber's book. So that was probably...
That's writing down each position and their roles.
Yeah, I actually have a picture of it in here at the moment. And from that picture, I have in my Trello, my vision board, all of the roles within the business, and it's got Chris's name and it's got Grace's name. It's got Chris for like 40 roles, and for Grace, it's got her 3 roles.
Cool. So there's a couple of resources there. Trello is an app that you basically move sticky notes and stuff around.
Yeah, it's like a vision board. You can see it. Yeah.
I would definitely say Audible is a huge one there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too. Yeah. And what was the other one you mentioned? Trello, Audible.
Was it?
Was that it?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, and writing your systems down.
Writing systems down. Yeah. So I use Google Sites for that.
Okay. Perfect. Google Sites. Okay.
Yeah. And another book would be, it doesn't have to be crazy at work. This one here, that is like,
who's that by?
It's by, great question,
Jason Field.
Jason Field and his mate David Hennemer. Hasselhoff? Don't know. But so these guys actually started
James Field.
Et al. Yeah. These guys started Basecamp, which is another online resource that you can use, which is kind of like if you've got a large company, how you would communicate between the company and if you had clients come on board. And so what you could do, like my friend introduced it to me because he's a web design company. And so what he would do is he would have Chris Ackland's website or any job that he wants to do in my brand. And then he would assign the people to it. And so within that, so you'd have, Ben's in charge of the design, so-and-so's in charge of copy, so-and-so. And so I would communicate in each different section with the person who was in charge of that. And it would that would how they would create. So it's a really fantastic resource. For what I do, it's probably not necessarily needed. So they wrote that book. They're probably one of the more profitable startup companies. And their business is built around like what you can have in say small to medium-sized businesses. You have subject matter experts within that business. And so let's say Ben's the subject matter expert of like telling a story and not asking a question. Anytime someone wants to know anything about that, they'll go to Ben. They go to Ben. And what ends up happening is they interrupt Ben so many times to do their job that Ben actually gets nothing done in the day. So they've set these systems up that say like 1 hour a week, you go to the subject matter expert and they teach you how to do it. So it's effectively like some people would be worried about that, but you're effectively, because that guy, while he's getting you to do his job, is getting
paid
twice as much work done while you're getting no work done.
Yeah.
And so other things that they've done successfully in their brand, in their business is that when someone's on holidays, it's impossible to contact them unless it's for emergency. So it's not like this person's on a beach somewhere. They get given, and they're just constantly on the phone to work. They're actually switched off because they think that when people come back from holiday switched off, they're refreshed and excited and want to try new things.
They've had a break.
They've had a break, yeah. So 4-day work week during summer, just all these possible things. And they talk about all their failures as well. But yeah, talking about like, it doesn't have to be crazy work. That's literally the whole, and that's what they've done, the mistakes that they've made, the philosophies they have going forward. And it is literally set up to protect them from themselves. Because it's all too easy when you're busy to just go to someone else and be like, hey, can you do this for me? And most people don't want, well.
She doesn't want to learn Excel.
Yeah, oh, really?
Like, I need you to do this for me.
That is blasphemy.
Oh, mate.
I love Excel. So that's probably number 2. And number 3 would be Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
I read that when right before I got given the role of head coach at CrossFit Box Hill, because I figured if I was going to be in charge of some people, or at least helping or guiding some people, I better learn how to be an actual leader. Because I know how to work. I'm a really good worker bee. If you give me a shovel and say, dig a hole, I'll just keep digging until you tell me to stop. But in terms of leading, like, I didn't know anything about it. So yeah, they're 3.
Beautiful. So I think, and here's another note for Maggie, who's hopefully listening still to this point. We're about an hour in. But I think what we're going to do is actually create a resources page on the NTM website and almost have an episode index with the resources that people have recommended. So if you're listening on the road, in the car, don't worry. There's somewhere you can go and get it.
Work for Maggie.
Yeah, exactly. Right. She's the SME.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm always interrupting her. Poor Mags. All right. And just finally, pay it forward. So essentially what I'm asking each of my guests to do is to put me in touch with someone who they think I would benefit from sitting down, having a similar conversation too. Obviously it would be great to be able to sit down with Simon Sinek or like a James Clear or Martin Gerber. It has to be someone that you feel comfortable like reaching out to and putting me in touch for. Don't have to think about it right now. Unless you've got someone off the
I got 2.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, 100%. So one would be potentially another podcast that you could interview, and both those podcast owners own their own gyms. So it's called Raise the Bar Radio. So Nick Scott from CrossFit Langwarrin, which is now Renegade Fitness, I think. Please don't help me, Nick, if I get that wrong. And then and that's the other one. So Stuart Cunningham, and he owns what was CrossFit Cranmer and now Bella.
Okay.
So I'd do those 2 guys as a joint podcast together. And then another one would be Jess Curl. She owns a gym in Fitzroy called Be Better. I'm sorry, Jess. Project Better. Yeah.
They donated a couple of sessions along with Iron Tribe to the Oxfam.
Yeah. So
there's a Box Hill connection there. So I met Jess many moons ago when I was down the rabbit hole of exploring gut health and doing bloods and just all these crazy things. Big rabbit hole. I met Jess. Jess was a strongman at the time, and then she ended up coaching at CrossFit Box Hill with us. Me and Jess got along with House on Fire, and both of us have since gone on. She owns Project Better, and it's like a small community gym in Fitzroy, I think, and she's doing amazing things with that community and Spartan and all these other things. So it should be another good one to get on the podcast. Fantastic. So I'll let you email interest and
I can definitely do that.
Yeah. All right, dude.
Pleasure, man.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We'll probably stop the camera rolling, but no doubt the conversation will keep going.
Absolutely.
Man, really appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
It's
Thanks
been
so much.
cool to know bits and pieces of your story, but I think sometimes even just for personal context, to be able to sit down and like give me the full background, and I think it definitely helps. There's a French version. We haven't had an hour worth of an hour and 10 minutes. Probably out of data. But obviously love what you're doing down here, and with MTMM, love being a part of it. And,
thanks, man.
Excited to see what the future holds for both of us and together, mate.
Absolutely.
Easy.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure. Hour and 9 minutes. Done.
I just deleted it.